So this is the second part of the Buddha Dharma series. In the first part, I spoke about the first noble truth. And the first noble truth that Buddha taught was there is suffering, meaning we have suffering running throughout our lives. And he stated that the word suffering meant sort of a dissatisfaction, a discontentment with life. Now, a lot of the time we feel that dissatisfaction, that discontentment comes from outside of us, what people are doing and saying and what is happening to us outside. But actually, it's within us. That suffering is mainly caused by the way we live our lives, the way we see life, the way we project life, and the way that we get attached, and all those type of things cause this suffering that runs throughout our life. So in the second noble truth, Buddha said what the causes of suffering are. So there's not just one cause of suffering, as there's not really just one cause of anything. Many things come together for things to happen. But in Buddhism we talk about three main parts to suffering. And these three main parts are the three poisons. And why we call them poisons? Because they poison our mind, they poison our behavior, they poison the way that we live our life, the way we see life. And because of that, they start to poison other people who we come in contact with. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the three poisons today, which are the three main causes of our suffering. But keep in mind that they're not the only ones, they are the main ones. So the first one I want to talk about is desire. So there are two different parts to desire. There's the selfish desire and there's the unselfish desire. So the unselfish desire is a desire to want to be compassionate, want to help people, want to look after people, want the planet to survive. We want to do the best we can and not kill animals and not chop down trees and all things like that. So it's actually a selfless sort of desire, because we're not wanting it just for us. We're wanting it for all sentient beings. This type of selfless desire is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as we're not doing it to have people say what a wonderful person you are. So as long as it's not being driven by our ego, then that selfless desire is fine. The problem comes when we have the selfish desire. That desire is I want, me. That type of desire, where we want the best car, they want the best house, we want. So that's a selfish sort of a desire. And the problem with that type of desire is that we never ever reach an end for that desire. So it's like having a thirst. So when we have a thirst, we take a drink. And then that quenches the thirst for a short period of time. And then a bit later on, oh, I'm thirsty again. So we take another drink. Yeah, okay, that's helped my thirst. But then much later on, again, I'm thirsty. And this is how it goes on. We're always having a thirst. We're taking something to quench that thirst, but it doesn't last. And it's exactly the same with our selfish, clinging desires. Because we buy the iPhone 10 and we think, oh, this is what I want, it's fantastic, and we buy it and we're happy for a short period of time. But then later on, we get the thirst for something else. Now, iPhone 11, we have a thirst to get a car. So we get the first car and The first car is maybe not the best car, but it's a new car, and I'm so happy to have this car, and it gets me from A to B. And then later on, we have a thirst for a bigger, a better car. So when we're constantly looking outside of ourselves to satisfy these desires, to satisfy happiness, if we're constantly looking outside of ourselves, we're never ever going to quench that thirst of desire. It will never happen. We're always wanting something more, always wanting something bigger, something better. So here I'm not talking about ambition. I'm not saying to you don't be ambitious, because okay, we need to get on in life and it's good to have ambitions, but it's not good when those ambitions are, we have to stand on somebody's shoulders, push them down so we can get up the ladder to be the best possible person at work or something. We can't be like that. If we have ambitions, we can't destroy other people's lives just to get our ambition. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't be ambitious, but what I'm saying is that we should check our desires. Because until you have gratitude, until you're contented with your life, those desires are just going to grow and grow and grow. And it's like that thirst. You will never ever get rid of that thirst. You'll have a drink, it will go for a short time, then it will come back. You buy something new, it will keep you happy for a short time, then you have to buy something else. It's never ending. And what happens is that we have a desire and it causes us to do an action. So maybe we have a desire, it causes us to go to the shop and buy something new. And then later on, dissatisfaction, discontentment comes. And so we're back to square one. We now have a desire for something else. So this becomes a vicious circle of desire, then action, then discontentment leads us back to desire, and then action, we need to get something, then we're discontented. And you just see, we're in that never-ending circle. And this is the type of desire that we call a poison, because that's just poisoning your mind. It's just taking up all your strength, all your bandwidth, just to keep thinking of things. I want this now, and now I want this, and now I want this. So this is the type of selfish desire I'm talking about, the type of desire that we need to be contented with whatever we have. If you're grateful and you're contented with what you have enough. You don't need anything else. So the first poison that Buddha was talking about is these clinging desires, the desires that we hold on to, the selfish type of desire, the desire that is like a thirst in our throat that is impossible for us to quench. The second type of desire are split into two, one part anger and one part aversion. So the aversion is actually the opposite to the desire. The aversion is that I don't want that, I don't like that, and push that away. We need to be looking at those aversions. We need to be asking ourselves a question, why? Why am I averse to that? Why am I averse to that type of person, that type of situation, that type of behavior? What is it? Because it's only when we stop and we look at our aversions that we find out a lot of our aversions are to do with our upbringing, that we've been told by our parents, by society, by religion, by school, by friends, that these things are good and these things are not good. They planted those seeds in your mind, and all through your life you've just been watering those seeds and they've just been growing, and you've never stopped and asked yourself, hang on, why do I get aversion to that? What is it about that that is causing me to want to pull away from it? Because it's only when we stop and look that we can find our biases and find those things that are in the unconscious mind that are driving us all the time. So aversion is another poison that we need to stop and look at. and we need to understand, what is it about this situation? What do I need to do to pull away from this aversion? Now, maybe some aversions are good ones, but until you stop and until you look at those aversions. So maybe you have a aversion of standing right at the very edge of the top of a tall building. Well, okay, I think that's quite a good aversion because you're not going to fall off. But we need to be looking at these things. Scared of little spiders, scared of little cockroaches and things like that. You know, a lot of the time our aversions are not in reality. They're just in some sort of imagination space in our mind. So we need to be looking at our aversions. And so the second part of this poison is anger. Now, a lot of people would say, and particularly in the West, you go to counselling and they would say, let that anger out. Or you don't go to counselling and you try to just yourself suppress that anger. Both of those are going to cause you suffering. Because if you suppress that anger, it's just going to build up. And it will not just build up emotionally and psychologically, it will also cause you problems like diabetes and bad heart, cholesterol, high blood pressure, stress, anxiety. All these things can be built up by trying to suppress the anger. So we should not suppress the anger. And we shouldn't just let the anger out as well. If you're just going to keep letting your anger out, what's going to happen is that it becomes part of who you are. The first time you let anger out, okay. The second time, so the first time you planted a seed. The second time you put a little bit of water on that seed. And then the third time, the fourth time, and now you've watered it and that seed has grown into anger. It has become a habit for you. It has become part of your behavior. It is who you are. You are that angry person. You have become that angry person because you just constantly keep letting that anger out. So anger isn't something that we should just blindly let out, and it's not something that we should keep suppressed. Actually, the best way to deal with anger is before you get angry. When we become angry, it's really difficult to try to let it go because, you know, we all know, we've all been there. Anger comes up in us and then we start to lose control and we can't help it. I mean, it's just taken over. So the best thing to do is look before you get to anger. Sit down and analyze, find out what triggers that anger. There is always going to be a trigger to the anger. Now here we're not looking to blame. They triggered my anger or that triggered my anger. We're just looking at what triggered it. We're not blaming anybody here. So find your triggers. What triggers that anger? Once you've found that, then just sit and just get to know your anger. How does that anger make me feel? When I've become angry and after I become angry, how do I feel? And how do you think other people feel when I've become angry at them? Where do I hold that anger in my body? So get to know your anger. Find your triggers, get to know your anger, and then think of some antidote. So in this situation, I usually become angry. So if that's usually the case, then what antidote can you plant that seed in your mind that, okay, next time this happens, I will try this antidote. Now, of course, just by thinking about it the first time, it's not going to change, but you've planted that seed, and the more that you keep watering that seed, the more you become that person who now has an antidote. So the best way to be dealing with the anger is, before anger comes, find out your triggers, get to understand your anger, and then set antidotes. The more that you catch that anger as it arises and put the antidotes in place, the less you're going to become angry. It's not an easy thing, and I'm not sitting here saying that it's going to take 5 minutes. It will take a long time. But if you don't start, you are never going to stop being that angry person. So think about your anger. Next time you have a moment to sit down and do some meditation, think about your triggers, look at your anger, get to know, be honest with yourself, get to know your anger, and then start planting those antidote seeds in your mind. And the more you water those seeds, the less you are going to become that angry person. The third part of the three poisons is unawareness. So we have all of us have an unawareness of how the world really is, how the world really works. We project, and we project onto the world that this is how the world is. It's either we think that's how it is, or that's how we want it to be. But actually what we're doing, we are projecting, and we're projecting from all of our past experiences. We're projecting from all those concepts that you've learned in your early years, all those biases, all those habits, all those things in your floating around in your unconscious mind. All of those come together to help us look at the world through our own eyes and not through the eyes of the way the world really is. As we go through this Dharma series, I'll be talking more and more about the points that make us unaware. But I'm just going to touch on just one or two subjects here, and we'll expand later on in the series. So firstly, we see things as permanent. That becomes a big problem, because there is nothing permanent. Everything is changing, everything is flowing like a river. Going back to the first poison of desire, when we buy something, we think this is it, this is what's going to make me happy. And so we try to find permanent happiness with an impermanent thing. It's impossible. So when we look at the world and look at people and our belongings and everything, and grasp at them, hold on to them, get attached to them, all of that is because we don't understand that they're impermanent. Things will not last. You'll buy something, it will break, it will be stolen, it will wear out. Or you buy something and then we die. But either way, nothing is going to be permanent. So when we look at things as permanent, we cause ourselves a huge amount of suffering. So this is the first part of being unaware. We're actually unaware that things are impermanent. The second part I want to talk about is cause and effect. We love to have answers, don't we? I mean, all of us. Why? Why did that happen? Why did they do that? Why did that happen to me? Why does this always happen to me? Why? We love these whys. We want to know. And if we can't know, then we'll invent something. So we'll either blame somebody else. If we can't find anybody to blame, then we'll look at God and say, okay, it's God's will. God did it. God moves in mysterious ways. And then that'll appease us and think, oh, okay, that's fine. I found out why it happened. But sometimes we'll never, ever know why things happen. Things happen through cause and effect. Something cannot just happen without a cause. So, first of all, there's a cause, and then there's an effect of that cause. So like your actions, all of your actions will have an effect, will have consequences. And if we understand this point, that things come into existence through cause and effect, then we won't be doing bad things, because we know if we do bad things, harmful things and hurtful things and unkind things, there are going to be consequences for that. Now, whether we understand the consequences and whether those consequences come straight away or they'll come in a year or two's time, who knows? But they will come. Actions always have consequences. Causes always have an effect. For an effect to happen, there has to first be a cause. And sometimes there are many, many causes. Like I was saying, I'm talking now about the causes of suffering, and I'm telling you these are three main ones, but they're not the only ones. When things happen to you, you can't just find one cause. There will be many, many causes. And I'll go further into this later on. But when we become unaware of things, it's like a poison in our mind. It means we're not seeing things exactly how they are. We're seeing them how we wish them to be or how we think they are. And a lot of that is down to thinking that things are permanent, which leads us to get attached to things, hold on, grasp at things. When they change, die, move on, then we suffer badly. When we're constantly forgetting that our actions have consequences, we're doing things that are going to bring negative and not very good consequences. So these are two of the poisons that make us unaware of the way the world is. So this is the second noble truth. 3 key causes of our suffering in this world are that we have these desires, these selfish desires. We also have aversion to things and anger at things. And we become unaware. We're not aware of things being impermanent, and we're not aware that our actions have consequences. All of these put together make it like a poison in our mind. Misunderstanding things, projecting wrong things, acting in unskillful ways, all stem from these 3 poisons. So this is what we should be spending time looking at. Look at these 3 poisons. Think to yourself, do I have these clinging desires? Do I let anger just come out? What are the things that I'm averse to? Should I be still averse to them? How did I get that aversion? And do I see things as permanent? And do I understand, really understand that my actions have consequences? By looking at these things, then you're going to help yourself to start to slowly reduce that suffering in your life.